I've said.
No comment.
No video.
Okay, so right, so we are recording this meeting as well as sending it out to YouTube.
Oh, there you go.
This is what we've been doing. So if you don't mind, Maria, I'm going to take just a minute and go through how we take public comment tonight. And then you can go ahead and start the meeting.
Absolutely.
So we've gone to a hybrid method. This is a municipal authority meeting for the Newtown Township. I would just mention that having gone to a hybrid meeting, people can be here in person, or we have people that are virtual. We have made the decision that part of the board is virtual to help protect as many people as possible with the COVID the way it is today. But we take public comment in one of four ways. You can make public comment by dropping it off in the blue drop box that's out in front of the township building. And if you do that before 3 o'clock, we'll pull that public comment and make it available to the board for the evening. You can also make public comment during the meeting when the chair recognizes for public comment by raising your hand via Zoom or on your phone. If you phoned into the Zoom meeting, you can also have an option to raise your hand and we would recognize you. If by chance you've had trouble getting your public comment into us through raising your hand and or by phone, or you just want to make your public comment by email, you can make public comment to publiccomment@newtowntownship.org. Again, that's public comment, all one word, @newtowntownship, also one word, .org. I check that throughout the meeting, particularly right around the time in which we're taking public comment. So this, again, just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, and I will turn it over to you, Maria.
Okay, I call to order the January 18 Municipal Authority meeting. And I'll take roll call at this point. I don't know why. Okay, sorry. I'm taking roll call now. Please say here when I call your name. Paul Montefiore.
Here.
Louis Rosenthal.
Here.
Tom Greco.
Yeah.
Mark Kay.
Here.
Maria Kane here. Dave Porter, engineer.
Here.
And Stephen Neese,
Here.
township manager. Okay. We'll take just a moment of silence. And now please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it
Just
stands,
stands one nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Okay, you've all had a chance to look at the agenda. I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Before we do that, I understand that there's two or several checks and also a payment from the bond money that we got late. If the board wishes to amend the agenda to address those, we could add those to the agenda at this time. Due to the Sunshine Act, it would require an actual amendment. So you could vote to do that amendment and then vote to accept the agenda as amended as two separate items, if you would wish to do so.
Okay, so the two items that we want to add are, I thought Rich had sent me something on that. Now, I thought he was going to leave it here, but it's not here.
He may have left it on my desk, and he has.
Okay.
Do you want me to
mind?
just,
Yeah, do you mind giving that to me? Because I did take a look at it and I thought it looked acceptable to me. Thank you. All right, I appreciate it. All right. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda to consider approving bills on check register B dated January 18, 2022, totaling $35,095.29?
Yeah, I make a motion to amend the agenda for check register B as stated by Maria.
Thank you. Any
Well,
questions or comments?
that will just for the record, that'll become 12.2.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is that a second?
That's a second.
Thank you, Tom. I
Louis.
mean, Louis, apologize. All
We'll get
those
it right eventually.
Aye. Mark, that's an aye for you.
Excuse me?
I said you voted in favor of
Aye,
that.
I'm sorry.
That's
Yes,
okay. Okay. Next, can I have a motion to amend the agenda to approve payment from the bond totaling $2,492 to Michael Sheridan, our previous attorney for this authority for professional services associated with the 537 Public Sewer Project.
So moved.
Thank you, Louis. Any questions or comments?
You need a second.
I second that.
Okay, any questions or comments after the second? Okay, hearing none.
I
All
would,
those in favor?
just to make note for the record, that item will be 12.3.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Steve. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And just so you know that we will repost the agenda tomorrow, which we're required to by the Sunshine Act, along with this vote, and that it was a 5-0 vote on both items. And also just note that we will put down that they were payments that we had received late and we're processing accordingly.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, can I have a motion? Everybody's had a chance to review the agenda. Okay, can I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
A motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Motion passes. Is there any public comment for agenda items only? Is there anybody in the public that wants to comment on anything on the agenda?
I'm checking. I don't see anybody on the screen. If you just give me one moment, I just want to recheck the emails. I have nothing, and let me check the screen one more time. No hands are raised, Ms. Chairman. You,
Okay, thank you. Okay, 7.1, the appointment of the authority solicitor. We're still exploring our options on that one, so I'm going to ask that that be tabled until our next meeting. Is there any problems or concerns
No
or anybody? Okay, so we can just move on. We're tabling that one.
yes.
Well, may I ask, what is the delay for the exploring?
I'm sorry.
What is the delay? What are we stuck on?
Making sure that we have not only a competent solicitor to step in for our previous attorney, who has been the attorney for this authority for numerous years, and to make sure that they're not only qualified, but that there are no conflicts.
Okay,
Conflict
and
checking takes some time.
what are we going to do about that? When are we going to receive something so we can review it?
Yes, you certainly will.
Understanding. Okay, thank you.
Certainly will.
Yeah, just so you know, we had talked about Frank Catania as potentially serving that position.
Yep.
Frank has respectfully declined to take on that role. He has agreed if we had something come up in between the time now and the time you appoint somebody, he would help cover for that. We already have him as special counsel, but so that would just be.
Or
an issue.
conflict counsel.
Or
right?
conflict
So,
counsel, yes.
Who was the previous authority?
Michael Sheridan.
Okay.
So, yep, big shoes to fill. So we're working diligently to do that. Okay, and then conflict engineer, I thought we named the conflict engineer.
You didn't last time, so you need to name him this time. I believe I believe you were willing to name Charles Catania. One of the concerns you had was he related to Frank. He
Right,
was
right.
as a third cousin or second cousin
And
or
then
something.
our current,
Right.
do we currently have a conflict engineer?
We do, we, before you used to use Stantec,
Right,
but one of the things we had talked about is potentially appointing somebody who has a little bit more experience in the sewer area.
gotcha.
And Mr. Catania actually is the engineer for the CDCA. So he has a very good understanding, not only of the conveyance system downstream from us, but he also has a pretty good understanding of ours.
Okay. All
And
right,
there would be no conflict with CDCA.
There would be no conflict
'Cause he's the
unless it was, I mean, because he's the conflict attorney, he would be only become an issue if he was having to serve as the attorney on
Conflict
both
engineer.
sides. And should be rare. Dave usually does all of our day-to-day kind of stuff, but if you had something that you needed a third party or another person for, he could do that.
okay. And can I have a motion to appoint Charles Catania as conflict engineer?
I'll make a motion to appoint Charles Catania as conflict engineer.
Can I have a second?
Second that.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, has everybody had a chance to look at the minutes from the January 3rd, 2022 meeting?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the January 3, 2022 meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes of January 3, 2022.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any announcements? Steve, do you have any announcements at this point that can, other than what's going to be stated later during your presentation?
Nothing that I'm not going to discuss it under my manager's report.
Okay, gotcha. I don't have any either. Okay, there's no fund transfer, I guess. And treasurer's report. Do we typically approve those?
You
Steve?
do.
Okay.
Yes.
So usually
Okay.
one of you makes a
A motion. Okay.
motion to approve and then
All
and you go through that.
Now, I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's report for November, that we reviewed the numbers and find no conflicts.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Any questions or comments?
I have a question.
Sure.
Pardon me. And Rich, I don't know if you're on the phone, but,
He is online.
or Mark, and again, it's first go around, so you'll apologize. I apologize in advance. On the summary page of the treasurer's report, it shows amounts held in escrow and they reconcile to $702,289. And on page 41 of our agenda packet, which is the sort of end of the listing of all of the escrow deposits, it's an amount that's less. It's off by about $12,600. And I would just want to make sure it's apples to apples. So on page 41, that grand total is $689,657 and some cents. And I would have, at least the way I'm reading this, I would have expected that to put to the summary item that says money held on behalf of others.
Rich, can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. I don't have the exact report you're looking at in your hand, so it's difficult for me to say. But what I believe you're looking at is you're looking at your. I'm sorry, I was messing with my camera. What you're looking at is your book balance versus your bank balance. So there's possibly some outstanding checks in the amount of $12,000 that would reconcile those two out.
Okay, I don't think so, because
And if you just
both amounts equal, they do reconcile. But at the end of this multi-page report, which it's a 26-page report called Open Deposit Report Escrow Deposit Balance.
Yep.
It itemizes each escrow deposit held on behalf of customers of the municipal authority.
Correct.
And I would have
And-
just expected that to reconcile to the summary page. Bank balance or book balance, you'll reconcile it either way. The number doesn't match. So I may just be new to this, but I just would have expected a detailed report to equal the summary page.
I will absolutely get an answer for you too. I'm sure there's a reason for it. Like I said, I just don't have the numbering you have in front of me to reconcile back to the two.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, it's the open deposit register. And what is the other report that you're saying it does not reconcile to?
This 26-page report that was distributed to us called Open Deposit Report Escrow Deposit Balance, and the total of that does not equal the treasurer report summary page, where it says money held on the behalf of others, either the bank rec or the actual book balance.
So
I can get you an explanation of why that doesn't happen. I reconcile the escrows every single month.
So Rich, he's looking at the reconciliation is showing 702. And then your escrow report is showing like 689.
Correct. That's what I said. The difference is not negligible, but it's not gigantic. And I would assume that it's a matter of an item or two missing. I apologize, but I live in a world of precision down to
Sure.
pennies.
No, we want it to be,
No, I think
Right.
it,
we want it, if we can't, if it's not a simple explanation, we want to
Right.
get it so it's straightened out.
That said, the cover page, just to sort of maybe close out my comments in terms of reconciliation of the authority's funds, I'm comfortable with. And I'm okay with accepting the treasurer's report with appropriate follow-up on that one item that I mentioned.
yeah, I'm wondering, can we approve subject to confirmation that the, I don't know if I
I
want to
will
call it a
accept-
discrepancy
no.
at this point, or. if
Well,
we-
the treasurer's report is only this one page, which
Mhm.
is on page 7 of our agenda packet.
Mhm.
Sure.
And I'm okay accepting that. The detailed report probably needs a little bit of work,
Yep.
which I don't necessarily consider to be part of the treasurer's report. It's not signed by our operations manager. So
All right, so why don't we, Rich, why don't you just bring to us at the next meeting an explanation as to the discrepancy highlighted here today? And we will take a motion to approve that treasurer's
we already have a
report
motion on the table.
on the table,
so-
so.
And it's been seconded, and I'm done with my comments.
So anybody else have any comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
thank you. Maybe
Uh,
just rookies, lack of understanding. So
We'll figure it out. We'll
Thank
get
you.
you more.
Yeah, I'm sure there's an explanation. I'm just having a hard time pulling the report up and zooming in and doing all that stuff at the same time.
Thank you. All right, payments. Consider approving bills on check register A dated January 18, 2022, totaling $2,766.21. Can I have a motion?
Motion to approve check register A for $2,766.21.
Can I have a second?
second,
Any questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
All right, engineers report. Dave?
You had two.
No, no,
additional
12.2.
changes that you
sorry.
added.
Once we add it.
Check register B.
Oh,
and
wait
the
a
other.
minute, is that on? Okay, I'm using my old, I guess I'm using the old
Yep.
one. I apologize. Oh, you mean from
Okay.
the amended agenda?
Amended.
Yes, from the amended agenda.
Okay, okay, so consider approving the bills. That's right, I apologize. Consider approving the bill. Can I have a motion to approve the bills on check register B dated January 18, 2022, totaling $35,095.29.
Motion.
Motion to approve the bills on January 18th for $35,095.28.
Is there a copy of check register B?
Yes. Oh, B, good question.
Right here.
Was not,
It was
Yeah,
handed to
so,
me here tonight.
predominantly on check register B, I think.
Check register B was added on the floor.
Yeah, so
the
predominantly check
agenda
register.
earlier.
no, I know that. I just didn't get a copy, so
Yeah,
I don't
check
know what
register
I'm.
B
None of us did.
predominantly is a payment to KBX. I believe
Aqua,
it's almost
right.
35,000. And then there is a payment included in the check register B to Michael Sheridan, and I don't have the exact amounts in front of me.
So we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second motion.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, can I have a motion to approve payment from the bond totaling $2,492 to Michael Sheridan Esquire for professional services associated with the 550 project?
I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second,
To Paul?
second,
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, moving on. Engineers report. Dave Porter.
Okay, thank you, Maria. I'll start off as usual with the public sewer connection permit or public sewer connection project in the Ashford service area. We have been working through a couple of issues with private property owners with regard to one, a lateral connection, and two, with regard to restoration of landscaping. The lateral connection was for 321 Crum Creek Lane. That's something that I believe we're going to discuss in a little more detail coming up here further down in the agenda, but just wanted to give the authority an update that a brief overview that when the sewer main was constructed in Crum Creek Lane, there was a conflict with an existing water main, which precluded the property owner from being able to connect to the public sewer by gravity. He then worked with his contractor to connect in the easement in his rear yard, came to the authority and sought some compensation for the additional length in line that he incurred as a result of having to go to the rear yard. The authority agreed to that. There was a dollar amount that was set for that, and the authority agreed to pay up to that exceedance of the original contract amount that he had with his sewer lateral contractor. And beyond that, the work has been completed. It's been inspected. The owner has provided me with receipted bills in the amount of $9,375, which is above what his original contract amount was, which at the time was conveyed to us as $6,500. So the authority agreed to an additional amount of $9,500. Obviously, that's within the amount that the authority agreed upon. Subsequent to that, we were asked to reach out to the owner with regard to a waiver and release. That owner disagrees with that provision. And as I mentioned, that's something we'll discuss a little more detail further on in the agenda. The other private property issue with 4019 Fox Hill Lane, They executed an agreement with a landscaper to do restoration on their property. To date, they have done some of the restoration. I need to get out to verify the plantings that were completed, and they have submitted a request for payment of some of that. The remainder is to be completed in the spring. But my understanding was from the last meeting that the private property owners were working with our solicitor on executing a release agreement with the authority, which currently the status of that, as far as I know, is unknown.
What property is that, Dave? I'm sorry.
That Maria, that was 4019 Fox Hill Lane.
Okay.
In the Camelot service area, I had worked with staff, township staff, on drafting a letter with regard to connection to public sewer for the Campus Boulevard properties that are tributary to the Camelot Lane pump station, which is currently up and running. My understanding was that our solicitor reviewed it, had made some suggested corrections, and indicated that that letter needed to be sent out by the township. That's something that I need to follow up with township staff on as far as the status and what the anticipated time frame on when we're going to get that letter out to those property owners. The Old Masters pump station service area, as the authority, a couple of the authority members know, we had a condemnation hearing with regard to that service area on December 6th. We're waiting on the results from that hearing by the judge. Aside from that, the public improvements on that side, as far as the sanitary sewer, have been completed. We had just recently, in the last month and a half, completed paving on Park Avenue, which was the last portion of the project that needed to be completed and paved. And the pump station is completed mechanically. And as the authority knows, and for the benefit of the new members, we're waiting on approval of an easement to get electric and a driveway access to that pump station. So upon receipt of that pump station can be tested and placed into operation. And that concludes the update on the public sewer extension project.
And Dave, could you just confirm timeframe for the permit, submission of the permit application?
So as part of the new route for the driveway, there will be additional earth disturbance, even though kind of the net change is almost zero. I mean, we're taking the driveway from the eastern side of the Old Masters property and flipping it to the western side. There is a small increase in earth disturbance, but the Conservation District is only interested in the new disturbed area. So that's what the permit application, we have to amend our current approved earth disturbance permit with the Conservation District. And I would anticipate having that package completed and ready for submission by, say, the middle of next week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Moving on for other updates, the Hempstead low pressure sewer system update. I know that's another thing we will be discussing later on in the agenda, but for the authority's benefit, I was asked to do some research regarding the existing lot or the existing sanitary sewer force main that services the residents along Hempstead Circle and Hempstead Lane, and also look at which tapping fees have been paid in relation to the Hempstead Circle development that was done back in around 2014 by Renahan Builders. So Renahan came in and took over for what was previously the Dever subdivision. Renahan picked that up, completed the remaining 3 residential lots, and paid the tapping fee for 398, 399, and 400 Hempstead Circle. And I have in my records the public sewer connection permit applications with information that documents that those have been paid. And if necessary, I'm sure that can be reconciled with Rich Lafayette in connection with his records and receipts. I was also asked, as I mentioned, to go out and physically look to see how many force mains have been constructed. The issue was with regard to whether the Dever force main was connected into what was, I guess, the Orsado extension, which is in Hempstead Lane, or whether the Dever force main was separate and parallel to that other force main, and in a sense would kind of segregate the cost related to each one of those. Based on my field observation, we only observed one low pressure sewer connection into the manhole at Hempstead Road and Heather Way. And that's indicative of there's some patches in the pavement out there that appears to be where they excavated for the low pressure sewer line to make the connection to the manhole. There's also an excavation or patch in the intersection of Hempstead Circle and Hempstead Road, which is indicative of where that connection of those two force mains were made. Short of excavating and physically verifying that they were connected, as part of the Renahan subdivision, we did have the developer go out and hire a locator, a utility locator, to determine where the force main for the Hempstead Circle development was constructed. And we have a report from that utility locator indicates that the force main was constructed along the easterly side of the road, which is consistent with where that marking is in the pavement. So aside from that, we are still working through our records and conducting some research in connection with the township staff and looking to see what's specifically contained in some of those prior agreements. And once we obtain those records and research them fully, we'll be able to present to the authority a recommendation as to who owes what. So we'll put something formally in writing, have the authority staff review it. Obviously, whoever is appointed solicitor will review it, and then we'll coordinate with the township to send out a formal response to those residents that were concerned with regard to payment of tapping fees in that area.
So if I could just, Dave, thank you for that.
Sure.
So this, and I'll ask this to the chairwoman or to Mr. Neese. This is, we have a agenda item. We're going to discuss a new business related to a proffer on a sort of a payment deal.
Yeah, so there's actually two different things going on here.
Okay.
So if I can.
Those addresses just sort of popped out.
Yeah, the addresses are the same, the actions are different. Okay, so Dave's talking about those three homes that we know have paid a tap-in fee, where the tap-in fee was paid for. When we get down below, we're actually going to be looking at the fact that for whatever reason, those three homes were never put into the municipal authority system to start collecting. So they've been receiving wastewater with no payment to the authority for that service.
Since 2014 as well?
Since when those homes were in, and I actually think it was probably in 2015 that they actually came online, 2016, depending on when the home was finished.
Okay.
The tap fee was what was paid in 2014, which was when the homes got started to be constructed, and that was that piece. The second part of this that Dave's been mostly talking about, there are, and I'm going to get it wrong, but I think there's 5 or 6 homes on Hempstead Circle that were homes that were in existence prior to these three new homes being built, that we've sent notice to, that they have, the window has started ticking, the clock has started ticking in their time to hook up. In that, we also sent them a tap fee based on what we believed the proper tap fee was supposed to be. They challenged that tap fee. And so we went back and we're doing all our research to make sure that we're actually charging the right amount. They brought to question some things, and we're going back through all of our documents. The homeowners in the area have shared with us some documents. I've gotten some other documents from Ms. Wilson, and we're just pulling all of that together, and so that we can make a proper recommendation to you and to the township as to what, if we're wrong on the fee, what it should be, and if we're right on the fee, then to move forward accordingly.
And I mean, just to clarify too, these are, two different issues. The issue related to the one that Steve is discussing now with respect to Hempstead Lane, is it, or
Well,
road?
it's both are circle.
One is circle, and then, no, the
So lane-
lower one is road,
The-
Hempstead Road
Yeah.
is the, so I just want to clarify that it is a rather complicated issue that needs to be addressed in relationship to a resolution that was passed in 2008 by this authority. So we're going to need to combine it with that. There's an Arsato estate that had put in the line in that, lower from the Dever circle, there's the Hempstead Road. There was a line in there, is my understanding. And that was put in by the Arsato estate prior to the sale of a home on that lower road. And there was a resolution passed at that time that any of those individuals on Hempstead Road that were hooking up to the sewer would pay back the Arsato estate. So we've got some obligations here. So I just want to, put a little more detail out there so that as a board, we understand that we're going to have both our administrative help, the operations manager, as well as our new solicitor, as well as our engineer, come together, take a look at any communications that were made to the, I understand the letter went out, which is one thing I haven't seen. A letter went out to the homeowners. I mean, there's a lot of talk about maybe statements that were made by people, which are to me, we've got to focus on the resolution that was passed, the agreement with the Arsato estate, and which, we have some responsibility for, and communications that went out from the township. So once we combine all of those things and we have our new solicitor on board, we can communicate and respond to some of those individuals who are continuing to communicate with us regarding basically a request to tap into the sewer for nothing. So.
Right.
Does that make sense, Steve?
It does. I would
Okay,
just make
thank you.
one note just for
Okay,
the new
maybe,
members.
and I'm happy to, get more
Just for the
background.
new members, because it gets a little confusing. So I mentioned to you when we went through our one-on-one times together that the Act 537 plan is owned by the township. The ordinance itself is also owned by the township. And that ordinance is the ordinance that I'm talking about when we sent out the letter. We were start the time clicking in regards to typically a resident, when we send out that letter, they have 60 days from the time we send out the letter to do the connection or file for
Extension.
an extension via that their system is working. And that's as long as their on-lot system is working, they can go for up to 10 years until they sell their house. And whichever one of those two comes first, or if the system stops working, then they would have to tap at that time. So, or they would have to connect at that time. But they would have to pay the tap fee now. And so that was how all of this started. We realized that the homes on Hempstead Circle had never been notified of that requirement, and that's the reason why all that started. So just that was done by the township. And now the authority is reviewing everything to make sure that the proper tap fee is what we're charging.
I appreciate that history. So when, as Maria said, when all of this comes together and we have a new solicitor hopefully we'll get a sort of summary of what you just described.
Absolutely. And have some
As a-
professionals make recommendations
Great,
to us
great.
so that
I
we
didn't-
make the right decision.
Right. I didn't mean it. I just heard 398, 399 and,
Yeah.
And
my
I want to
brain
make
said
sure
I
you
heard
there's
that
two
before.
different issues.
Got it. Okay. Sorry, Dave.
No
All right,
problem.
Dave, I think you can move on to number 3.
Yes, ma'am. Brief update on the Ellis Preserve Sector 1 Phase 2 residential development. You recall that our special counsel, Frank Catania, was working through an agreement with that developer with regard to operation, maintenance, and ownership of those lines, the sanitary sewer lines being constructed and or rerouted through that development. That agreement has been completed. And what that allows the authority to do is to further issue public sewer connection permits for the residential dwellings as part of that development, which we have been doing since we've gotten word that that agreement has been completed. Ellis Preserve Sector 1 Phase 2 Commercial is basically the next and last phase of that development, where the developer and its engineer put together a sewage facilities planning module document for review. I did have the opportunity to take a look at that document, had several comments which I conveyed to the developer, its engineer, and its legal counsel. And we are presently discussing some of those issues and following up with the DEP on some of the other issues with regard to that document. The Stony Knoll subdivision plan, it's a 27 lot subdivision plan off of Wayland Road. That application was before the Board of Supervisors on December 13th, where the board approved that preliminary plan with conditions subject to addressing comments outstanding in our review letter, which our office, as the conflict engineer for the township, reviewed that plan and application because Stantec was involved in preparing that plan and application before the township. So there are some outstanding issues with regard to an easement that the developer needs to obtain to tie into the authority's existing sanitary sewer easement, along with other land development related issues. But as far as the authority is concerned, that's the biggest issue that they have to deal with. They also have submitted a sewage facilities planning module to the township, which we reviewed. That has since been passed on to the DEP for their review as well. Dunwoody Village update. I have completed review of the plans and calculations for their proposed pump station. I issued review number 2 letter dated December 27th. 95% of the issues have been resolved, save for 2 or 3 housekeeping items, and 1 is a requirement for them to provide a engineering cost estimate relative to the kind of quasi-public improvements. So this pump station at Dunwoody is going to be privately owned, operated, and maintained, but nevertheless, it has to be constructed to a certain standard. So that falls sort of within a quasi-public improvement that if they start to develop and they fail to complete the pump station, the authority has the ability to draw on that financial security to complete that pump station. So we authorize them to move forward with their construction phase, subject to adding several notes to the plans and providing that cost estimate. Once we have a solicitor in place, we'll have to coordinate with our new solicitor and Dunwoody Village to execute an agreement and memorialize that financial security on behalf of the authority. Lastly, Marple Newtown High School has a new concession stand that's under construction. We had reviewed a pump station and design calculation report, had a conference call with representatives from the high school, their engineer, back in November, and save for a couple of minor issues, they pretty much addressed all of my concerns. I have to issue a formal letter to that effect, which I am anticipated to be done probably either by the end of this week or the beginning of next week. And that concludes the engineer's report for this evening.
Okay. And operations manager, thank you very much, Dave.
Sure.
Operations manager report.
Yeah, I
Steve?
just would tell you that we've been actually kind of a quiet time on the pump station operation, which is good. I will tell you that we had a little bit of a conflict from the township's perspective. If you'll recall, you gave an authorization back a while ago that the construction for the apartments could use the entrance from 252 to get in to start the construction of the apartments at the Ellis Preserve. We have since closed that off. Just so you know, we are not allowing them to continue to use that. And today we actually chained it off, put cable up so they can't continue to use it. If they continue to do so, we're going to take a little bit more drastic step. And so I just wanted you to be aware, even though the authority had issued an agreement to use it, we found a couple things. One is there's a deterioration on the sides that's going into the dirt, bringing dirt out into the street. And so it's not acceptable to the township that continues. And so I just wanted you to be aware that even though you've agreed to something that's your property and you've done it, we're putting a kind of a stop to it as we would if it was any other situation. But just because we're doing that, if you'll recall, one of the requirements is the developer has to fix all the macadam that's been damaged as part of that. So we're going to be probably pushing that all of that get taken care of, fixed and cleaned up and resodded or at least stabilized now. So even though they're not really done, we're pushing for them to be done at that location. So I just wanted you to be aware.
Was that a written agreement, Steve? Or
I think it was kind of more of a verbal agreement that we had, although I do think there was a written point that they had agreed to fix the macadam once that was done. And
Okay.
that's not a problem. They're still agreeing to that. It's just that we just have to bring all that to closure.
thank you. All right, new business 16.1.
So I think this
sorry.
item,
Oh,
before you
sorry.
go, we'll need to go into executive session to discuss.
Okay. Oh, that's right. We have an executive session. So
I
are any
think-
of these items, can we do we want to come back on the record after
I
doing the
think you're going to have
executive
to come
session?
back on the record for 16.1.
Right, okay.
So it's up to you whether you want to handle 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then item 17.1, and then come back and do 16.1, whichever way, whatever your preference is.
I'm just looking at it. Yeah, why don't we at least do 16.2, 16.3, and 16.4.
Okay.
Okay, so 16.2, update regarding pipe repair issue at 126 Bryn Avenue. And I think that's Dave would
Yeah, I
handle that
think
one.
Dave can help us with that, I'm hoping.
Dave, could you give us an update on 126 Bryn Ave?
Sure. Some time ago, and I don't recall specifically when, there was a sanitary sewer overflow. I believe it was on that property or the adjacent property. I think that the overflow was actually on the adjacent property, but during the time where that overflow was resolved, so typically what happens when a sanitary sewer overflows, we have to contact the DEP, inform them of that overflow, and then do cleanup action and investigation to find out what the source of the overflow was. So in that particular case, our Newtown's Public Works Department worked with RHM and or KBX Golden, who is our wastewater operator, to televise the line, and found that there was at least one section of pipe adjacent to one of the manholes that was in pretty bad disrepair and or disjointed, which as you might imagine, if the pipes are supposed to be jointed together, disjointed means they're kind of offset. And as that flows, if there's any larger materials that go through that line, it could get hung up, and then everything else gets hung up at that point and causes a backup. That said, the location of that particular manhole and where the disrepair is in a private property owner's yard, so to speak. So the access would need to be through their driveway and front yard to get to the easement where the authority has permission to operate and maintain its lines and repair its lines. I don't think that the overall extent of that repair would necessitate a public bid per se, but nevertheless, we would need to reach out to some repair contractors to see, one, what's the best way that we can repair this section of the sewer, whether that be excavate, replace, or can we do kind of a lining method, and then solicit those quotes. We will need at least 3 quotes. I'm presuming it's going to be above, that $11,500 range where we're going to have to get 3 quotes, present them to the authority. There are obviously, because of the easement, there will have to be a legal component to that to get permission from the property owner to get in through their property to access the easement to do that repair. That's something that Harry Robinson at Newtown Public Works had informed me of. With the authority's permission, I'd be happy to go out and solicit quotes for that. That's pretty much it for that particular issue in a nutshell.
I would agree that, it'd be, I know we don't have the solicitor in place regarding any agreements at this time, but it would be great, I think, to get the 3 at least telephonic bids at this point on making that repair to see if we can, get it that way, provided, depending on the numbers and determining whether or not we need to.
Sure.
publish it. It doesn't sound like we will, but that would be great, Dave, if you could take that on.
Will do.
How
Dave,
did we
can-
discover the issue?
It was discovered because of the sanitary sewer overflow.
So it's continuing as we speak,
No,
or it's subsided
it subsided.
only because of,
Well,
No
it's
massive
only a
rain.
problem if, as Dave said, if a large item
okay,
gets clogged in that spot.
Or massive rain, as I understand it.
so it's just a matter of luck that we don't have another issue.
We need to get it straightened out.
Got it.
Yep.
Yes.
We could probably act under emergency, but I think we should do this through the proper channels.
Okay.
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right, and then we need an update as well, Dave, on the pipe repair issue on the 3200 block of Westchester Pike.
Yes, similarly, that has been an area of the township that has been of concern. The township had worked with the Radnor Haverford Marlboro Sewage Authority and coordinated regular maintenance and cleanings of those lines. However, because of an issue that occurred at, I believe it was an apartment complex, Steve, is that correct? Adjacent to Charlotte's Restaurant. They had a backup into their facility from their sanitary sewer lateral. We came to find out that it wasn't an issue from the authority's main, but during investigation of that, we found that there were several sections of that older sewer main, which a lot of it was terracotta or vitrified clay pipe that was broken, cracked, or in disrepair. We communicated to the authority. We were asked to go out and determine what the cost would be, or estimated cost to do a repair of that section of the line. That's something that we estimated was going to be probably in the $150,000 range. So we did go out and do topographic survey of that area, put together a plan. And once we did that, the authority was kind of in the best of my recollection, the authority was in budget time and didn't want to pull the trigger on bidding that project yet, to be sure that they had the funding in place to be able to go out and award a bid for that repair. We're looking at probably about 300 feet of sanitary sewer. It's right along the edge of Westchester Pike, which would be rather difficult construction given the close proximity to existing utilities, curb and sidewalk, utility poles, and things of that nature, coupled with the fact that Westchester Pike, typically underneath the asphalt paving, has a really thick section of Portland cement concrete paving. So that will make the construction a little more difficult. But that's sort of where we are with everything. We have a design plan that's probably at like a 90% complete. And if the authority so chooses, we can, complete those plans and get them rolled into a bid package to put that out for public bid.
Yeah, so thank you, Dave. And typically, would you manage the RFP on that or?
Usually with those, we allow the engineer to manage it. It's because they understand the project. I mean, we could do it from the operations side, staff, but the engineer knows the project best, will be able to actually answer the construction folks' questions a lot better than we can.
Yeah, and Steve, to speak to that, is typically what we do for our other municipal clients. And as you know, if we put it out on pen bid, you have access to look to see what comments are being made and how they're responded to. So you're in the loop as well.
Yep.
And Rich, where do you see this falling into, budgetary issues? If we began the RFP like soon?
So I think this would come out of some capital that we have in the SR2 area. And I think we have enough capital in the SR2 area to go ahead and handle this today. This goes back a little bit to the conversation I've had with several of you as we've been talking, particularly the new folks getting you up. That we've got a section of the township that has significantly older pipes. And we're really going to have more and more of these type of projects. And we're going to have to really start looking at what that looks like. And potentially, we're going to have to do a borrowing for the eastern side of the township to really go after and try to really start doing some correction. But there's some steps, and Dave and what we've talked about is like going out and really videoing lines and really starting to get to understanding so that we can do that. But we do have some dollars that we could spend for that now. My belief is if we know we've got a problem, it makes the most sense to go fix it and address it with the dollars that we have. And then if we need to do something different going forward, but for right now, this makes the most sense.
Just one quick question, and maybe I didn't pay attention, but you mentioned an apartment complex next to it, and is this just old deterioration, or was there some cause from an adjacent property or property connected to this?
That's a very good question. That's something that I really could not tell you definitively whether there was causation to it. I know with the extent of other utilities excavating in Westchester Pike on a periodic basis, I'd be more inclined to think that any deterioration of the system would come from that, and then just simple wear and tear and regular vehicle traffic over time, considering that it's vitrified clay pipe and not up to today's construction standard where we have backfill and compaction of plastic sewer pipe that doesn't tend to break down. That would be my best guess.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, so then I don't know, do we need to vote on?
I think it would be helpful because we're going to ask Dave to expend, I mean, you're going to have a bill from
Dave.
Macombi Engineering. to this.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful for you to go ahead and vote and say that you give authority for that to happen.
Okay, So can I have a motion to authorize our engineer, McCumbie Engineering, to issue an RFP for the repair of the 3200 block area of the sewer pipe system there of Westchester Pike?
So moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments? Any additional questions or comments? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. All right, 16.4, discuss joint sanitary and stormwater easement survey at Hansel Road and at Sawmill Road. I don't know, is that you, Dave? I think, you-
That's
or is
me.
that you, Steve?
Yes.
Sorry, thank you.
So we have a area that coming off of the back of Jeffries and forget the other one that's up there right now, French, that comes down. There's a system that comes in,
Okay,
and then we have a sanitary or storm sewer that comes down and goes in and connects into Hansel Road.
gotcha.
That same easement, there is a sanitary sewer line that runs down that same area. We have an issue right now where we keep ending up with a sinkhole at the section of the property that's just about 30 feet off of Hansel Road.
Okay,
And the last time I was out there, I think we've gone ahead and backfilled it temporarily now, but the last time I was out there, it was probably about a 4-foot sinkhole, which was actually exposing the stormwater pipe, which happens to be like right almost next to the sanitary pipe. And it would have also been exposed had it been just a few feet wider of the hole. So the township wants to go ahead and do a survey of that area from the, coming down the side of the hill there to make sure we have a clear direction as to what that area is so that we can really start tackling. We believe there's a stormwater problem somewhere there. Obviously, that's what's causing the sinkhole. We want to make sure it could also be a sanitary sewer problem. We're not sure which one. And so what we had looked at was we would go ahead and have it surveyed, do a joint, if this municipal authority was in agreement, we would do this jointly. And
why, can I just ask, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Sure.
Like, I know you're talking about jointly with the township. What makes you think that it could be sanitary? And
because we know both lines are there. We have on our records
Okay.
that both lines are there, and we believe, we kind of know that if this continues to happen, it's going to cause an undermining of the sanitary sewer line as well. And we're just not sure which one it is for 100% sure that's causing the problem. And so what we want to do is we want to get we just want to do the survey now, make sure that we have the right area to work in, and then we're going to go in and our team, our public works team is going to do an initial excavation to go in and just determine what's the actual cause. But we want to do the survey first before we start digging, so we're not crossing outside of the easement that's there for both lines. And then once we determine whose it is, then we'll go from there and doing the repair. But right now, it's kind of like a flip of a coin, whether it's whose problem it is. And so that
Hey,
was the
Steve,
reason.
Steve, sorry to interrupt. I just had a quick question for you. The agenda indicates it's Hansel at Sawmill Road,
Well, I think it's actually two separate
two issues.
Yeah,
issues.
I
One's at
think, I
Hansel.
think Sawmill Road is they don't join.
They don't,
Right.
it's
My-
two separate issues.
Yeah,
We
Okay,
have the same thing happening in both places.
okay,
Sawmill Road, I know I'm seeing, over the years accumulation of water. I'm not seeing I don't see in other words, there's stormwater,
Yes.
but I don't know how it could be attributable. I can't even imagine how it could be attributable to sanitary. Because it's just stormwater that's collecting there. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so yes.
I just can't,
the issue, that's a different issue than what I'm talking about.
For Hansel, okay.
Well, and even for the one at Sawmill, it's not in the same place where the accumulation of water is.
Okay.
What we are experiencing are two sinkholes. And it happens to be in an area where we have a dual easement going on, both sanitary and stormwater. All we're wanting to do is survey the two areas so we clearly lay out where the easement is so that we know where we are before we start the process of excavation.
Well,
We'll-
okay, let me just ask this too. So if you're talking stormwater, wouldn't there need to be a drain there? Because there is none at Sawmill Road.
There is I'll have to confirm.
I have
the
walked
Sawmill.
around that area and looked and I've looked for a stormwater drain over there.
But it's
I
not
don't
where
see
the
one.
water's standing. That's what I'm trying
Yeah,
to
the
say.
water is standing on a couple properties.
Yes.
Private properties.
Yes. So the Sawmill one, I'm not as familiar with. I am very familiar with the Hansel one. I've been out there. I happen to have seen where it is. I know that there was a pipe that was exposed that I actually thought was the sanitary line.
Okay,
And George said he thought it was potentially the stormwater line. I thought it was too small for the.
So Stephen, let me check this out. So you're looking for us to pay money towards the survey, but if it's not our pipes, then we don't have to pay it and we get reimbursed or what?
Yeah, so it's basically, we're gonna go in and what we want to do is we're gonna use township resources to do the actual excavation to find out what the problem is, but we can't do it until we get the survey done to lay out where the easements are. And we're
So
just
you
looking
look-
at splitting the cost for the survey for the easements so that we have a good record of where these two easements are.
But if we then determine the easement is not caused by municipal authority, do we get reimbursed?
We can do that, yes.
I would feel that much better about that if it's not our problem.
I guess the question that I would have for you is, does that work both ways? You know, if it is this sanitary side, or is the sewer authority willing to pay for it if it goes the other way? I'm
Well,
sure the
just a-
township will be glad to agree to that if,
Yeah, but the survey has value to begin with.
to both entities, and that's why we're
Right,
asking.
whether it's our problem or it's not, we have value in
Yes.
in having that.
and their
That's
sewer
properly.
lines are in both places. or,
That's
you know.
correct. But if, I mean, we could do it either way. We were just saying if we both would benefit at the end of the day of knowing it and having it laid out.
One of my concerns too is I wouldn't want the township doing any excavating at all unless our engineer was there.
Right.
I mean, I just don't want to start opening things up and then we don't know, we have no idea as to what's going on.
Sure.
And then,
Sure.
and then someone comes back to us from the township and says, oh yeah, it's you, and we had no one there to verify that.
Sure.
So.
But I still don't see why we would end up paying for it if it wasn't our pipes. I think I would do it the first way. We would pay for it towards the survey to help do it. But once it's done, if it turns out not to be our problem, we shouldn't pay anything for it at that point. And I'd be willing to pay everything for it if it is our problem.
Okay, well, let's show, is the board comfortable with combining the two, or do you want to handle these separately?
I think combining makes sense.
Okay. Okay, there are two separate
Yeah.
roads, two separate areas. Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we approve the 50% sharing of the cost of the survey of both Hansel Road and Sawmill Road to determine easement area. And if the resulting problem turns out to be sanitary issue, then we will reimburse the township, or the authority will reimburse the township for the full cost of that easement. But should it be a stormwater issue, then we will expect full reimbursement for our 50% share paid. Can I have a second?
I would second that.
Okay, I think Paul seconded. And any questions or comments, clarifications to the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, good. And I guess we may as well try to handle this one at this point, even though I think we've kind of addressed it. I'm not sure we're ready for a motion on it, but discussion in 16.5, discussion and possible action regarding 398, 399, 400 Hempstead Circle lump sum payment request. Although I have taken a look at it, I don't know if the other board members have, where there was a request for 80% payment of the historic amounts owed. Rich, could you give us a summary of those amounts? Rich, are you there? Rich has left us.
Well, what I did was I took on page 54, it highlights those three
Mhm.
properties, and I just took that amount and multiplied it by 36, and I approximated what they owed us. I appreciate the proactiveness. The email, it suggests that somehow this is a great deal for the authority. It's not a great deal for the authority. And it presumes that we have an appreciation for the time value of money that the author of the email has. And this member does not have an appreciation. It poses more questions. The first of which is, I think you're questioning, Maria is right. What is the amount? And a summary should have been sort of included in here. How far back did it go? What's really the issue? This notion of somehow we get to avoid paying for credit cards. It just raises a lot of issues. 20% discount doesn't make any sense to me personally. If they were going to go out and get an installment loan to pay this, a great rate is 6%. And, that's really, really a good deal. So I think anything, look, I don't actually know where this sort of went wrong or sideways.
So if I can take a minute, Rich is on.
Hi, I apologize. I literally just stepped out to get a drink, and you guys must have called me at the exact perfect second.
Timing's everything.
So we're looking at item 16.5, but as my understanding is that these three homes were hooked up, I believe it was in 2015, 2016, when they took possession of their homes. They started using the sewer. During that time, we were not collecting anything. It's all done by meter. So it's not like we're questioning the value. We have a meter reading from when they started using their house until this point, or started using water until this point. So I think the thing is that when we sent out the letter that we talked about earlier tonight, they came back and said, hey, we're already on sewer, or at least we thought we were when we moved in. The tap-in fee was paid. We went back and we looked and we said, oh, yes, but we've never gotten you set up in a system that we're actually billing you. And so we went back and got the meter readings from the time in which they were there till this, or time in which they started until this point. And so their amount came out to be what it was. And then I believe they sent this letter to Rich like at the end of December, basically saying, if you'll agree to this, we'll go ahead and pay this right away. The comment that I would make is we know what the usage was. I'm not sure where they thought their wastewater was going during that time and what they thought they might have going on. That, obviously we don't like the fact that they went for this longer period without being billed. We're looking at our internal processes to make sure that that doesn't happen again. But the facts are that, you know, it is the usage that we've asked them to pay. So,
What is that
Rich-
total usage right now?
Rich, do you have the numbers?
Yeah, yes, I do. So for 398 Hempstead, do you want the total bill, do you want the total discount is what they're
Well,
asking
I
for?
want the total, I want both. So if you could go and give me per property, the total amount billed.
Sure.
Okay? And then when we're done, we'll look at what that 80% amount is and make sure that, because I mean, I'm not seeing a documented amount here. So like that kind of concerns me that, you know, we're
I
gonna put
just
on the,
multiplied this by 36.
right, but you know, we're gonna put on the record an approval of something. And, you know, I just want to make sure if you've been in touch with these people, that if we are going to consider something tonight, that, you know, this is not going to be all for naught. Okay, so go
Yeah,
ahead
sure,
and give me the
absolutely.
amounts.
So 398 Hempstead was billed $3,819.63.
Okay,
399 Hempstead was billed $5,282.55.
okay,
And 400 Hempstead was billed $4,271.72.
okay. And they're saying of those, and that's through what date?
That is up through 9/22/21.
9/22/21?
Correct, that is when their bill went out.
Okay, because this email is from December 20. So that the amount, the amounts that you just gave me, would those be the same as what, based on the offer that was made on December 20?
Yes.
Yes,
We
the
haven't
fourth quarter.
billed the last quarter yet, and that's
Okay.
what. you're-
Correct, yes.
Perfect, okay. And they're in the system now, Steve, and they're.
They
being-
are in the system, though. We'll
Okay.
get them going forward. In
Okay, so
regards,
we're
they'll be just
talking-
part of our normal billing.
Okay. So 9. We're talking about 13 or 14,000. Somewhere between there. What is the total of the three?
Between 372.
2. Okay, and they have offered 80% of that. Rich,
Yes, that is correct.
and they've offered that payable when?
They offered it the day after they sent me the email. I said that wasn't my, I couldn't answer that question for the board. I needed to take it before the board before they could bring the check in.
Okay. And what is the 80% amount?
So if you give me
The
one
first one
second,
would
I just
be-
have it a bit differently.
It's
we
a
gotta-
discount total of about $2,600
That's correct.
between the three properties.
26.
Yeah, the exact discount total is $22,674.78.
Okay. All right. You know, I mean, any of you can make a motion as well, but.
Oh, I won't make a motion. Can we discuss this a little bit?
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
So it's not like this is coming out of retained earnings. And although there has been, you know, they didn't get billed. I think the, Mr. Neese makes the appropriate comment. They used it. I mean, you know, it's not like we can say to, you know, RHM, you know, hey, you know, we had somebody that, you know, we never really billed. Can we just adjust our bill to you or Cdca, whoever that may be? The reality is the payment plan that I'm assuming Rich proposed to these folks is a good deal. It's an interest-free loan over 36 months. And in fact, if they'll save between, one will save about $400, the other saves a little over $500, the other saves about $400 if they had to finance it someplace else. So I think the interest-free loan that's been suggested is a really good deal. I get it, you know, it's no surprises kind of thing, but it's not what they're really asking for, they're the other ratepayers to the municipal authority to underwrite their 20% discount. We're not taking it out of retained earnings. I would not support anything more than a 5% discount if they paid now. That's just my,
No.
my 2 cents.
Yeah. Any other comments on this?
So what's been offered to them is they can pay it back over 36 months interest free. And they
Yes,
haven't agreed to that yet?
they have not.
I don't think they like that.
No, they came back with, we'll pay
20%.
you 100%.
Or 20% discount?
Yeah, we'll pay you 80% now,
Yeah.
so that you don't have to spend the time, effort, and whatever administrative costs in overseeing this 36-month plan. So-
And Rich, just for clarification, because I'm only getting some of this information from that email. Do we not pass through a credit card interchange fee? We absorb that.
We do not, we absorb it.
We can by law pass it through,
Yeah.
we just don't.
I just in terms of equity for everybody who pays by check, they're literally underwriting a 3.1% discount on everybody else's bill, which to me, it just doesn't feel equitable. But anyhow, that you've now heard my thoughts on that.
Yes, and I think we need to make some form of a motion. It sounds to me like we've got we can offer a discount somewhere between 5% and 20%.
So let me propose a motion.
Sure, I think that would be
So
wonderful.
in response to those 3 addresses on Hempstead Circle,
Mhm.
I would make a motion to authorize our professional staff to offer a 5% discount if they come in with a check.
Within how much time? I think we need
30
to put a
days.
time period,
Within 30 days.
within 30 days of today. Okay,
And I would expect that if they took that, we would draw up some type of an agreement that also says they have to continue to maintain current payments.
maybe just an acknowledgement,
Right.
that they will continue to maintain their bill current.
Correct. That would be my motion.
Otherwise, over the next year, maybe, and otherwise we would then expect that 5% discount to be paid back.
Yep.
Can I just make sure I'm repeating back what I think you're saying
Sure.
to make sure that we're all on the same page?
Sure.
We're going to offer them a 5% discount, but it's contingent that for the next year, they remain current on their payments. If they don't remain current, the 5% would be added back into their bill.
In addition to any other
And
fees and
they have to
penalties.
pay this bill by check, not by credit card.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
good.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, within the next 30 days. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
And within the next 30 days.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you for adding that.
Rich, you understand that? Is that correct?
Yep, I am on board.
Okay,
Just want to make sure we're all on the same page so that we handle it the way you want.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, so that was made by Lois, okay?
And I will second that motion. Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, at this point in time, I'll take a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Whoops, I have a hand raised. Do you want to take the hand?
Sure. Is it on the last item?
I don't know. I just saw it. I'm not exactly sure when she raised it.
Let's see who it is and if it has to do with the item that was just.
This is Patty Wilson, 4111 Battles Lane. It was on the last item, so it caused me to have a number of questions because I am very well aware of the issues related to this particular area, not the least of which was I would, if I were a board, want to know how the number of what they owed had come up with, whether or not we had used historical cost because we have raised our sewer rates on an annual basis. So whether or not this number was come up with so that each year that these folks had not paid, it was equal to what everyone else was paying. Secondarily, it's my understanding that the law only allows, there's a statute of limitations on how many years you can go back and charge people. And it's unclear whether or not we've gone back the full 6 years, whether or not these folks owed it or not, or whether or not this was just for the prior 3 years. I mean, I think it's really incredibly unfair to a resident who we've failed to come back and say to them, look, we've come up with this number. I think we owe them at least an explanation of what rate we used per year to come up with this number, and recognizing that this is still happening in many areas of the township because of issues like this particular area where a sewer line was installed by, I think, another homeowner via a private negotiation between the solicitor for the municipal authority, without any input by the other residents. These folks have effectively paid twice because, in fact, the initial developer for that line put the line in and didn't charge, and then we turned out and charged a tap-in fee. So it's my take on these particular homeowners. I'm sorry to hear that you're taking such a hard line. I would prefer that we get more information before essentially saying to somebody at a time like this, we failed you. We didn't get all of the information here, and we're just coming up with a number and charging you without explaining, here's how we came up with this particular bill. I just, I'm a resident here. I've been here for over 30 years. There have been many issues with billing on the municipal authority. This particular area has lots of issues, not the least of which is the issue of the line itself. So, I'm sorry you took the action you did. I hope you will reconsider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, at this stage, I'll take a motion to go into executive session. I'll make the motion. Anybody second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 So let me just real quick explain what we're going to do here. So those of you who are in the building, we are going to go upstairs to the upstairs conference room. For those of you that are online, I want to verify that Mark and Tom and I believe we'll want Dave Porter in executive session for this. Dave Porter, all three of you have the executive session link.
Yes.
So you're going to leave this meeting. Don't lose your link for this meeting, but we're going to leave this meeting. We're going to keep this meeting running. I'm going to let the video just run. Rich can edit it afterwards, right, Rich?
He's muted.
Yes, again, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we'll keep it recording. We'll hold on to that, but for the purpose of the YouTube, we'll shrink down the period of time we're in executive session so somebody doesn't have to sit through 15 minutes of nothing. And so, but we're going to go upstairs. We'll meet, but you'll call in. I've already got the computer upstairs set up so that we can set up the executive session up there. So that's what we're going to do. And we'll come back as soon as we've discussed the issue and then be ready to go.
Okay.
Hey, Tom, you're probably gonna have to leave this meeting to go into the next one.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Hey, Richard. Hello, Richard.
Hey, Mark.
We made it back. It was a
I was
long,
gonna say, you guys, I was about to curl up in bed for a bit.
oh my God.
But
Everybody's tired. Everybody's wiped out. It was a long
Yes.
discussion, but it needed to be.
good. We
So,
still have,
the budget, that's it.
yeah, no, I think I'm gonna promote Tom. I think Tom moves in as a attendee for some reason, so now he's moved back over to panelist.
Okay.
I'm not so sure anybody's going to have the patience.
Just
to
a
go through.
test. I want to make sure that you can hear us. Is that correct, Mark?
That's correct.
Rich?
I gotcha.
Okay, good. Everybody's mics are on still?
Yes, I believe so.
Yes.
Okay, so we're coming back on to the record after an executive session of the board where we discussed a legal matter. No action will be taken at this time on any such matter that we discussed during executive session until our solicitor is on board. Okay, so continuing with the agenda, old business, we have.
Madam Chair, I would
Yeah.
suggest that we table 16.1 based on the discussion we had.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Okay, so we'll put that on the record that we're table 16.1 is an item that we did not address during the meeting, so we'll table that until the next meeting. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, and 17.1, discuss and consider approving the 2022 budget, which was distributed to the board members in their
So
packet.
I'd like, if I can, to make the recommendation. I'm going to ask Rich to go through the budget with you tonight. I'd like to make the recommendation that you not approve it this evening, that you really just take this time to hear what's in the budget. If you have questions for us, I would recommend that you give them to us. If we can't give you answers this evening, we'll get answers to you. But I believe we can pass the budget as late as the February meeting without a problem, because we're not going to set the rates for the quarter until then anyhow. And so if that's okay with you, I'll just let Rich go through and do the presentation. It takes the pressure off of trying to make a decision tonight. But I do want as many questions as you can give us in that. So Rich, if you'll just go through the budget, not necessarily line by line, but at least pretty close to that, just to kind of explain what we're doing and then why we're where we are, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not sure. We're kind of in a unique situation here. I believe back in November, the board approved myself, George Sharitz, and Mark Kay to start working on our 2022 budget. Since then, we've been working on the budget. It's kind of progressed until this point. So we're just going to kind of jump into it. And if it's too high level, let me know. If it's too nitty gritty, let me know. I'm just kind of trying to find a happy medium here because some board members understand it, some are new, which is understandable. So I'm just going to start out to give everybody a little background. There's the SR2 district, which is the RHM district, and there's the the RS3 district, which is the CDCA district. Both of these districts run to different treatment plants downstream. Therefore, they have different rates. Due to the fact that they have different rates, they have different expenses, and therefore we treat their budgets differently. So although it's one municipal authority, we actually have the SR2 fund and the SR3 fund. Obviously SR2 for the RHM system, like I just said, and SR3 for the CDCA. So I believe what Steve has up, I'm trying to look at what he has up with my notes, is the SR3 district. So currently the SR3 district is the district that is being expanded by the 537 plan. So there's a lot more I want to say, moving parts and estimates in the SR3 district and the SR2. The SR2 districts is pretty stagnant. And when I mean stagnant, I mean there's not a lot of growth happening in it. So what's happening from year to year, you can kind of assume is going to happen in the following year. SR3 with all the expansions and timing of tap-in fees and things along those lines is a lot more estimating going on. So in both funds, our revenues are pretty much consistent of, you have your sewer rents, which are your number one ongoing, your revenue stream. In there, we also have a 10% uncollectible allowance. This is the collectible allowance that we give ourselves for people that don't want to pay on time. We might have to take them to court. And the funds are, a little bit harder to get, but we give ourselves about a 10% uncollectible allowance in there. So sorry, I'm jumping around a bit because there's just a bit of a break and I'm just going over my notes for a second. So give me half a second. All right, so I guess the three main categories I wanted to go over in our SR3 revenues is, one, it's going to be your SR3 sewer rent. That is the rent that we actually get off our usage fee. And for the SR3 districts, the current user fee is $11.32 per 100,000 gallons. The next line item down you're going to see is your sewer rent penalty. This is the 1% penalty that we charge for everybody that does not pay on time. The next line down here to see is an infrastructure fee. The infrastructure fee is a $5 fee that we charge per EDU. So if you're, and when I mean EDU, and Dave, correct me if I'm wrong here, I believe it's about 82,000 gallons per year.
It's 225,000 gallons per day. I don't know what it is per year, but that sounds about right.
So we take 225 gallons a day and divide it by.
Yeah, that's right.
I knew that number stuck out for a reason. So what we do is we take it and we charge $5 per EDU. The next line item down you're going to see is our 10% uncollectible fee. This is what I just talked about. This is a little bit harder to get. We build this in because we might collect it in future years. We will collect it, but these are the ones that are a little bit more difficult to collect. And the SR3 district, the last thing you're going to, or the last couple of things you're going to see is your sewer application review fee. This is the $750 that they, an applicant that is connecting to the sewer for the new project pays the municipal authority. And this covers their escrow application fees, things along those lines. Long story short, that fee kind of covers the engineering fees. Moving on down, something that you're going to see in the SR3 district, but not in the SR2 district, is tap-in fees. As I just explained, our SR3 district is expanding. So every time it expands, obviously somebody pays a tap-in fee. With the SR2 district not expanding, we're not really going to collect tap-in fees. So you're going to see a big difference between the SR3 fund and the SR2 fund, with the SR3 fund collecting about $1.8 million in 2022. The last thing you're going to see in the SR3 district is a $278,000 transfer to capital. And we're going to actually touch on this later. But all this is previous year's tap-in fees that have been collected, that have been transferred to the capital fund. We are pretty much going to transfer them back to the operating fund to pay some bills if the board chooses to, but we'll touch on that later.
Rich, can I just ask, this is a very basic question, but I'm trying to understand.
Absolutely.
I guess it's on our printout. I don't know if it's yours. I mean, see the years up at the top. Is that supposed to be 2021-21? Is that right? And then
Yeah, that's just the way it comes out of our accounting systems.
okay. And then I notice on the SR2, I mean, it says 2022, but it's got a comma in there. That's supposed to be 2022, right?
Yeah, like I said, it's called a CSV file. It comes out of the system. I thought I got them all. I apologize that I didn't format that one correctly.
I just want to make sure I'm looking at the year. And what I'm trying to understand is, like it says 2021 for current year budget.
Mhm.
And then it says current year actual.
Correct.
And then what's the difference between projections for that same time period and current year budget?
So
Isn't
our
that
current
what a
year
budget
projection,
isn't a budget a projection? And excuse my ignorance on that.
no, it's a good question. A budget is I guess you would call it a projection. But these projections are projections that we make throughout the year. If we think we're trending off budget, something along those lines, you will see it in this column. And if we think that we need to make budget adjustments throughout the year, we bring them to the board and ask for budget adjustments.
So another way to look at it is the budget is what you're going to set typically at the beginning of the year. And that's a
Correct.
pretty static piece once we set it. We know
Yeah.
that's our game plan that we're kind of running for the year. Actuals is what we're actually spending, where we are. And then as we get near the end of any year, we put in projections of what we think we're going to end up. Obviously, we're in 2022, so our projections should be pretty accurate.
Pretty accurate. Okay.
There are some, now this was done, we didn't adjust anything since in December. So there may be some things that are going to be a little different, but we try to give you as close to what we think we're going to end the year based on what we think is still outstanding. And so that's our projection. That's what you're seeing. So you have your budget is what you pass and what is kind of set. We can do a budget adjustment as needed, but typically it stays pretty consistent
But
throughout the
budget
year.
adjustments are done by resolution of the board.
That is done by an action and motion of the board. It's not something that the staff can do. It's only something that you can do, but it is our authority to spend within. And so if we're going to go outside that, we should be coming back to you and asking for something.
Okay,
different.
so the column, and just to follow up on what Maria was asking, the column that says projections is not necessary, does that include approved adjustments, or is this what you think will run the year out at?
This is what we think we'll run the year out at. If there's been an adjustment, it actually would be made to the current year budget. It would actually go back and be adjusted there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what would be helpful is to understand what date this was prepared as of. So if it was November 30th, I could almost say, oh, well, they're going to get another $1 million in the month of December, which is why, we see such a big swing or something like that. When I look at.
Rich, when was this prepared?
It was prepared in the beginning of December.
So this is really your estimation of how the month of December runs out to close of business 12/31.
That's correct.
Whenever. Okay.
Yes, that is correct.
So yeah, so if you put that date at the top, it gives
Right.
a little bit more understanding of, because if it was done on December 31st, it's just a couple of accrual items you might miss.
Correct.
But it should be almost.
Absolutely.
Got it.
I will make sure to note that on the next draft.
Yeah,
And
that's-
so just in terms of how we planned or what we originally thought a year ago, when we see tap-in fee of 3.4 million, and we really only expect less than $200,000, what's the basis for us to say in 2022, it's going to be 1.8 million?
If you'll recall, we've had the conversation of needing to get the old Masters pump station up and operational.
So
And that alone, if there's roughly 200 plus EDUs.
It's 268. It's 268 EDUs make that number up.
Okay, and so that would allow us, that's what we're anticipating. We believe that we'll get that up in 2022. We'll receive those revenues. And you'll see, we're projecting that as the way to cover the outstanding.
got it.
debt.
Gotcha.
Okay, Rich.
So overall, we're looking about $3.48 million in revenues in the SR3 district. So moving on to expenses, you're going to see a lot of expenses in the SR3 district that are also in the SR2 district. At the end of the day, the systems both have the same goal. So you'll see a lot of the same line items. A lot of them will be a different number just because of the different costs, but we'll just move down the list relatively quickly.
Hey, Rich, before we do that, let me just, so we thought we would have for SR3, $4.8 million in revenue this year. Now that we know a lot of things, it's only going to be 2.1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
When did we anticipate commissioning Old Masters?
Originally,
When we did this budget last year?
probably somewhere in the, I think initially we were aiming for somewhere in the July timeframe, June, July timeframe. Is that about right, Dave?
Yeah, that's correct, Stephen. It was physically completed, I think, like beginning of August, maybe end of July.
Yeah.
Okay,
But that was later than we had initially
got
anticipated.
it. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Like I said,
Before you go on, Rich, let me just, are there any other questions regarding revenue? Because I think that's, I don't want to jump ahead if we haven't covered everything there.
No, I think that's good for me. I don't know.
Yeah, and absolutely. If we aren't going
No,
to
I'm
pass the
good.
budget tonight, I would appreciate any questions or concerns you guys had, getting them to me, and I can address them before the next meeting, and we can go from there.
Sounds good.
Okay.
So moving on to the SR3 district, I'm not going to hit all the little teeny tiny line items, but the ones I would like to point out, if you scroll down to the administrative support services, which is $40,000, it's about $40,000, but it's actually right on the top of the page that you're looking at now. This is our first main expense, and this is actually the fee that the municipal authority pays the township for the administrative support that they provide, that would cover myself, Stephen, and we also have a few other employees, one in particular that's dedicated to bill collection and billings. So moving along, you'll also see utility billing customer service for about $10,500. We actually outsource a company to help us. Since it's just myself and a few other individuals, we have about 7,000 sewer accounts in the township at the moment. So we pay somebody to help us out. They're called Dallas Data. When somebody calls in, they can answer utility billing, customer service problems, things along those lines. Keep on going down. The next thing that you're going to see is your pump station maintenance. As you'll see, we budgeted the exact same number in the previous year. This is the number that we think we're going to be at when the Old Masters pump station is up and running. Since it has not been up and running this year, obviously our projections are substantially lower than what we budgeted. Between George Sheritz, who's the Public Works Director, and myself, we did some calculations, and we believe that when all the pump stations, including Old Masters, are up and running, we'll be right at the $243,000 mark. The next line item you're going to see is the Cdca treatment charges. This is obviously the biggest line item you're going to see in the budget. This is what the Cdca charges us to send flow downstream. This is based on a number of things, and Dave, chime in if you would like. It is deals with their capital debt. It deals with the flow we send downstream. It deals with the operating costs that they deal with. But we get this number directly from the CDCA each year. And as you can see, it went up about $55,000.
Yeah, and I just would make note that there is a percentage of this that is part of the debt that the CDCA has for a pump station remodel that they did. I say remodel, it was an expansion to take on not only our sewer, but also Edgemont's and Upper Providence. So it was those three coming together. They were the last three. We were the last three to join the CDCA of 12 members. And so they had to do an expansion of their main pump station. And so we have some debt there, but a lot of most of this is the usage. What I will tell you is it's always retro. So it's always a year behind. And so they're going to come back and probably do an evaluation at some point over the next couple of months. And we may get hit with a little bit more than that because we've actually added all those new homes in Echo Valley, but we don't get that until a little bit later. So we may have a potential of having to come up with some extra dollars.
But this in and of itself is already 10% increase.
That's already a 10% increase that we know we have.
That was back in 20.
That was back in 20.
Yeah, Steve, I just wanted to kind of expand on that a little bit. It was a good point that the charge is based on Newtown Township's proportionate share of the total flow that CDCA treats, and there's that's monitored and calculated by the CDCA through metering of our flow, our pump station flow that's discharged to the system. And then there's certain, by agreement, there were certain formulas based on the breakdown of those percentages of costs that are obligated for Newtown to pay, which, as Steve indicated, are going to rise because we're sending a lot more flow through the system now.
So they don't see our meters, they just look at the meter where we connect into CDCA.
They have installed separate flow meters with telemetry capability on our pump station dialers. So we are actually reporting out to the CDCA. The other thing that they consider is on an annual basis, the authority has to prepare what's called a waste load management report. It's by Chapter 94 of the PA code. And we have to submit that by the 31st of March to the DEP. And in our case, in Newtown's case, for RHM and CDCA, we're asked to prepare that and submit it to the Central Delaware County Authority Engineer's Office, as well as the Darby Creek Joint Authority Engineer's Office through RHM. We have to prepare one report for each of those, which indicates what our flows were at each pump station leaving the township for the entire year. So they can cross-reference those two documents or those two data sources to determine what has been discharged to the system.
So, I apologize for belaboring this, but do we ever do any type of reconciliation of what we capture on residential meters or any customer meters that we
Or
then
even
generate
pump
bills
station?
for, and then what we pass off to CDCA? Like if I had 10 gallons in meters,
Right.
but CDCA said, you passed me 11 gallons,
Yeah.
I'm 10% off.
Yeah, and so the answer is we have not really been doing that, but what I would tell you is if you'll recall, I think you and I had this discussion when we were kind of going over some of the different things, and I think I've discussed it with a couple others. Because of infiltration in the system, after it leaves your house and my house,
Right.
I anticipate, particularly during rainstorms, that we have this increase. And so it wouldn't surprise me that we're 10% higher,
Okay.
if that makes sense. We could go back and do a normal study on a normal day and be able to tell, which would be interesting. And the problem is our meters are read by Aqua and they're not necessarily consistent on the same day that the meters are read
Right.
from them. So,
Okay.
Yeah, and to further expand on that, Steve, the residential meters are water use meters.
Yeah, right.
What we're metering at the pump stations is sewage flow. So to kind of just, for the authority's benefit, there's a little bit of a difference. There's always going to be a little bit of difference between those two
Yes.
types of meters. So.
I would make note that the CDCA passed on an 8% increase to all municipalities overall. So ours was up not a lot for what I expected, to be truthfully honest.
Yep. Okay,
All right, so moving on, the next, I guess, two major expenses you're going to see is the one, it's labeled engineering 537 inspections. That is a direct in and out. We have an agreement with McCummey's office that the $750 for all new tap and fees will cover all fees from McCummey's office, whether it's a little bit higher, a little bit lower. So that $108,000 that we collect in, I guess you would call it application fees, is directly outflows to an expense to McCummey's office.
So,
Moving down the line.
you know, so it begs the question, why are your projections different if it's passed through?
Because we didn't have all those other connections that we had anticipated this year. And so that's part of that.
No, what I'm saying is we're projecting 8,400 for current year application review fee, but we're going to pass through $53,000 for projecting. That's what I was getting at.
I see what you're saying. We actually started doing this midway through the year. So this is just an accounting. I believe that some of these are actually rolled up into your engineering fees as well. But that is something that I will have a definite answer for you at the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, Rich, were you going to go over SR2 or did we kind of do that already?
No,
So
we
I
have,
was going to go over, I guess there's one more thing to report on SR3, and we can talk about that. And then just, I can go over SR2 in a kind of a 10,000 foot view, because it's roughly the same thing, just a bit of a different situation at the end of the day.
Yep.
So the last major expense you're going to see is your $2.1 million loan payment. This is our debt service payment that we are obligated to pay. I believe it's for the next 30 years for the bond for the 537 plan. As you can see, our loan payment for 2022 is $2.14 million. This can be paid through either user fees or tap-in fees. If you move up to the revenue, you can see that we're collecting about 1.86 million in tap-in fees, which is going to leave us a difference of $278,000.
Right.
As you can see from the revenue, staff has put in a $278,000 transfer to capital into the revenue, which would equal the tap-in fees plus the transfer would equal your debt service payment. There's a couple different ways that you can get to where you need to be with the debt service payment. The first is obviously you can pay all tap-in fees, and that's what this budget here it shows. It's the 1.86 we're going to collect in 2022 plus the 278,000 that we've collected in previous years, which gives us a full debt service payment. Or if the board would choose not to spend down reserves, we can turn the $278,000 difference into a quarterly or a usage fee for our debt service payment. And if they would choose to do that, it's about a $34 a quarter fee to make up that $278,000 if we chose not to spend out of reserves, but actually raise the money in 2022. And I know that's kind of confusing, so if there's any questions about that, please.
Well, I have two questions, or maybe it's the same question. So we also have transfers to capital as a budgeted item at the bottom, which is this year we think we'll do 916. Next year we're budgeting 42,000. So effectively, we're taking $278,000 out, putting 42,000 in.
Yep.
Number one, what's the basis for the 42,000?
Well, the 42, if I can,
Let me just ask question number two, because I think it's related. Why wouldn't we just transfer all excess into capital?
The 42, the all excess could be transferred into capital. We're not thinking we're going to have excess. We're actually thinking we're going to, that's the reason why we're pulling 200 out of capital to help us make our budget. But the 42 relates specifically to the infrastructure fee.
Correct.
And so we're matching the infrastructure fee
Got it.
to go into capital to say that we're putting those dollars aside to help
Capital contribution.
for future areas.
Yes.
The 200 that we're suggesting taking out of capital relates to other tap fees that we collected really over the last couple of years on this project, with the idea that they actually were, they're designed to help pay the debt.
Right.
And that's a recommendation. Rich brought up the fact that we could start moving towards a charge. We're going to have to charge people at some point for the debt. My recommendation would be for 2022 that we not do so, that we use the tap fees that we currently have and the tap fees that we're going to collect, come up with a plan over 2022, really try to have it knocked down and really committed to by the no later than June of this year, with the idea from June until December, we spend a lot of time communicating whatever that plan is so that people know
Absolutely.
exactly what to expect over whether it's next year or whether it's the next 5 years. However we do that, that we build into a plan of how we're going to start raising the fees in SR3 to cover what needs to be to pay. Because you can see when you look at the bottom line, if you look at it 3.3 million and 2.1 of its debt, that's the biggest portion of what we have to cover.
That's we have an amortization payment that comes up in 2022.
In
Correct.
2022 and on. So
Yeah.
the debt was taken in 2018. I think we've shared that with you. And in 19, 20, and 21, we basically capitalized that expense. And so it was added back in
Right.
as part of the debt, and we paid all that out, and we've done all of that. Now we're in the spot where we're actually having to write the check and from operating dollars or dollars that exist, and that's what this first payment is.
Right. And so you highlighted the 2.1 of the 3.3 is towards debt service and debt amortization. There's $170,000 difference. And that's really, I was just sort of scratching my head. Why wouldn't you just say all of that goes to capital? Is you just some cushion in case the revenue doesn't come in, or
So
up a little?
You mean this number, the 134 to the 3?
Yeah, 3,486,000 minus
Yeah, I got you.
3,310,000 is about $170,000.
Rich, can you
I don't want to
explain?
call it net income, but it's
Yeah.
net income.
Yeah. Absolutely. So as we talked about before, the CDCA is going to come back and retroactively bill us at some point in time. So the 175,000 is, I don't want to call it a cushion. It is a bill that we know that we're going to have to pay at some point in time. What portion of that we're going to have to pay, we're kind of unsure of, judging by when we start sending the flow down the stream.
Got it.
But we wanted to leave the 170 in there just because we do know that the CDCA is going to raise our metered usage in the near future, and if not, possibly retroactively bill us a bit.
So just so everybody understands, Delcora retroactively does an evaluation of 2021 usually somewhere around March or so, and they do a true up, and they charge back CDCA. CDCA some years passes that back on to the municipalities based off of what that true up is. And so that's the reason why, we're looking at that. And if we don't spend that, then I would argue, yes, we would move it over to capital. The other piece that I would make note is we matched the bond payment, tried to match the bond payment to the amount that we've collected for tap fees.
Right.
And so this dollar, that 170, that difference is actually would be operating. And theoretically, we're trying to keep it as operating until we know differently where we are. We're going to be in this position until we get everybody hooked up and operational. And it's about a 2 or 3 year period that we're going to have to be managing this piece, that because we're having so many people hook up in a year, we have to try to figure out how to manage that.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah,
So we
so,
have Rich.
so overall,
so that we can-
Yep.
And we can send any additional questions to Rich.
Sure.
Because, okay, go ahead, Rich.
sure. So it's a small screen. Are you on SR2 right now?
I'm on SR2, yes.
Sure. So a lot of the same things that you'll see in SR3 that I just discussed, you'll see in the SR2. Obviously, our number one collection or our number one revenue is our user fees. A couple things that you won't see in here are your transfer in from capital, like we just talked about, and your tap-in fees, because like I said a little bit earlier, this is more of it's a steady district because there's not a lot of construction going on. So at the end of the day, we believe that we're going to bring in about $1.8 million in revenue in the SR2 district. So quickly going over the expenses, you'll see pretty much all the exact same expenses that you see in SR3. The main difference here is instead of the CDCA charge, you're going to see the RHM charge, which went up, I believe, about $75,000 from 2020, $72,000 from 2021 to 2022. This is another number that we get directly from RHM. In regards to the rest of the expenses, pretty much remain the same. But since we're not collecting any additional revenue, that additional $75,000 from RHM actually puts us in a hole of about $63,000 for the SR2 system after you net the revenues and expenses out.
So how are we going to deal with that?
So there's a few ways you can deal with it. The first is you can increase rates. A $63,000 deficit is equivalent to about a 3.32% increase. And that would raise our SR3 rate from about, our SR2 rate from about 870 per 100,000 gallons to 899 per 100,000 gallons. And like I said, that equates to a 3.32%.
Okay.
The deficit
And then-
is 1/3 of our estimation of bad debt allowance. If we had 0 bad debt allowance, we would have a surplus budgeted. And,
Correct.
and what I would say, and one of my closing comments was going to be, and I don't know if we necessarily can get it done for the next meeting, but a more serious discussion about allocating 10% generally for bad debt, because that's a number that would have gotten me fired from a number of jobs. And that's just an outlandish number. And if it's based on history, then I think we need to sort of be smart about the whole thing. But we have a $30,000 deficit, but we're projecting $190,000 in bad debt allowance.
$62,000.
Yeah. 60,000, yeah.
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 No, I totally agree. That's a really good way to look at that. Yeah,
If everybody paid their bills, we'd have no deficit.
are we, and moving forward, do we need to a
Yeah.
different approach, not only from a budgetary standpoint, but from an operational standpoint?
Well, my earlier comment about what's fair and equitable is, again, this is not coming out of somebody's retained earnings. This is coming out of the other ratepayers' pocketbooks, which is not fair. So
It is not fair.
it's not fair.
And it is not
No, I
fair,
agree.
the amount of time that we spend
Oh,
trying
I'm
to
sure.
collect people who should be paying.
I'm sure.
And if we weren't dealing with our repeat customers who, some of them are, it's one thing when Mrs. Smith falls on hard times.
Absolutely.
My heart bleeds and I want to make sure we help Mrs. Smith figure out how to move from A to Z. But when you have people who are landlords in our community who just don't pay their bill, and they say, well, I'm waiting for my resident to pay that to me, my rentee to pay that to me. It's like, that's not how it works.
Right. And just, for anybody else who may be listening in to this and some of the commentary we heard from the public before, this is about, my position is about fairness amongst the folks. It's not about being hard or unfair. So anyhow, I'd be happy to work with Rich over time if he want some assistance in maybe thinking about ways to address this.
I think
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. That has been a hot topic with, I know this board for quite some time. I've been working really hard to get that number down. I would love to have a new set of eyes on it.
Rich, can I just ask one quick question on that, the bad debt allowance? Why don't we have an actual in here?
Because it's a budgeted number. Your bad debt allowance it's kind of like the use of fund balance. It's something that you use for a budget. It's not a physical accounting thing.
But how do we know whether or not we are budgeting
right
accurately
amount.
if we don't know what it actually
So
is?
Rich, what I think between now and next meeting would be helpful is if you could share with the board what we had for 2021, understanding we haven't gotten the last quarter yet taken care of, but what we had for 2021 as unpaid account.
Absolutely.
I see what you mean though. Yeah, but I would appreciate that. Thank you.
No, absolutely.
Okay, anything else by way of
No.
comment? Or I think we've pretty much at least generally gone over it. And Rich, we really appreciate you taking the time, because, so
Absolutely.
many of us are for the first time are really kind of delving into it. So we all really appreciate it.
Yeah, and no, and like I said, if anybody has any questions, please get them to me. I know it's late and there was an hour break in between. We kind of started off a little scrambled. So by any means, get me any questions you have. I will get them addressed and have them ready and button up for the next meeting for you guys.
All right, you don't need us to summarize the questions that we put on the table already.
No, nope, anything new.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
Okay, so we're not going to take any action on the budget at this point, and we'll table that for the next meeting. And anything for the next agenda, items for the next agenda, anything else other than what we've already announced throughout the meeting as being tabled? That's it as of now.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
if you come up with something that you're wanting us to report on that we're not, or something that, if you have questions ahead of time, please feel free to send them over. That way we hopefully will have the answers for you when we come to the meeting, and I don't have to say, I don't know that one, but I'll get back to you. I'd much rather say, hey, you sent this over to me and we got this answer so that we can answer to you while you're on the floor. We're happy to do that. And, yeah, we're more than willing to do that through the process.
And then
Absolutely.
the only thing I would mention by way of agendas is that, if you guys, Steve and Rich could help us out with this and get us the proposed agenda well enough in advance that we all have a chance to look at it so that we can get it finalized and posted in time to comply with the Sunshine Act.
Yep.
So like, I'm thinking, is a week before too much for you guys? Is that?
Well, we
is-
probably won't have all the details a week before.
Okay.
I mean, that doesn't mean we won't have an outline.
Yeah,
maybe
just an outlook, what would you, maybe even 5, like if our meetings are on a Monday, I mean, to get it, like, even just the Wednesday before, I mean,
Okay.
I think that would be really helpful, because then we've got a couple business days.
I'll never complain about getting something early.
Yeah, well, I just don't want to set an
Yeah.
unreasonable expectation and
Yeah.
then be upset that we're not getting it a week ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let me look into, I mean, typically we do a agenda review on the Thursday before. But let
Okay.
me look and,
With a Monday meeting, that's a little tough for us.
yeah, I understand but what we can do is I can work at getting you the outline of where we are. Before that, understanding that there'll probably be changes between the outline and that Thursday meeting.
Okay,
And then as you provide us information, there'll be more. Typically, what we've been trying to do in the past is send it back out on Thursday night to the board so that they can review it. I know that hasn't always happened. So we'll try to get it to you before that, as early as possible. I'll look at working with the staff member that's doing this. Is it Nick that does this budget, Rich?
Yes, it
I
is.
mean, does this agenda?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so we'll work with Nick to get it out to you initially, even maybe Monday or Tuesday, with just, it may be
Just
a
a
lot of blanks
shell,
still in
more or
it,
less, yeah.
but that way you can see where we're headed. And then as we start filling in, and we'll I'm trying to fill more things in as we go versus at the end. And so we'll work on that.
okay.
Okay?
Really
Agree.
appreciate it. Okay, I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So move.
Second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, have a
Thank you.
nice night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Dave, can you hear me?
No, that's
Well,
fine.
no, I think it was.
Yes.
Dave,
Nice.
Yes,
can you meet us Friday morning, maybe?
Friday morning.